Welcome to Get Serious. Today, I wanted to do a brief note on really getting clear within your business and how that can start transforming your results and just kind of greater clarity on what you're pursuing and getting back from your efforts and how that can happen just very quickly. Okay, to boil this down a little bit more, because I realized that was probably a pretty vague statement. Since we've been in the land space, over 5 years at this point, but since we switched exclusively to funding deals in early 2023, I really wanted as much volume as possible. And just, I'd want to work with as many operators as we can and, just build revenue. Ideally we could find folks who wanted to work with us more routinely, and that did happen a good chunk of the time. But plenty of folks were more one-offs, and again, the land space, there's just a lot of churn, a lot of volatility. People come and go in this industry all the time, and especially in more tricky markets where folks are just finding it tricky to find any properties that they might want to purchase, regardless of whether they're seeking funding or not, and whether it's going to be accepted by a funder. Because again, we probably accept 1 to 2% of all deals that were sent our way. Over the last 12 to 18 months, roughly. Like, there's a really high threshold for getting any type of deals accepted. And so that's how I was just like, okay, volume. And we built out our branding a lot, and we grew really, really quickly, right, into mid 7-figure ish business, within 18 months of starting our funding business. But then things just kind of plateaued from a revenue perspective heading into 2025. Well, at least the Q1, I was just really trying to grow really quickly. Could we do 3x growth year after year after year? And we were trending for that in Q1 of 2025. And then, it really started to get difficult. I think a lot of businesses were just struggling more by Q2 of 2025. Not everybody, but the overall sentiment was more akin to that. And, a lot of shifts within the real estate market and difficulties in the macro economy, et cetera. And still a lot of disconnect with lining up sellers for appropriate purchase prices, and then also just heavy buyers markets, just tough to dispo things as well. So, a tougher environment to grow in regardless. And I just really had to see, okay, there's a lot of volatility in this space with the operators that we're working with, and just finding the consistency and the deals that we're actually going to do on a routine basis. And that's just kind of a core axiom, is that volatile customers or clients in our case lead to a volatile business. So like, we have volatility in our business because of the underlying volatility of the people that we serve. So it's like, okay, I really need to start going up market more to work with operators who have more staying power in this industry, and also work with more incentivized realtors who are more knowledgeable about the areas that they serve. And it's just, higher value deals can lead to larger businesses, because, even though we were doing 20K minimum purchase price deals, again, always looking for roughly a 2x margin on deals and a preference of 50K plus, it was hard to grow beyond like the 3 million top line revenue mark, or at least that's what I was finding, kind of getting stuck in that swamp. Hormozy always talks about, and regardless of more hours in and so forth, I had to figure out, okay, in order for us to get to that 10 million mark and beyond, we need to go up market here more strategically. Otherwise, we're probably going to be treading water with what we're doing, which is like fine if you're trying to build more of a lifestyle business. It's just not what our goal is internally. And so as we started heading in this direction, first we were trying to get some liquidity back from a lot of deals sitting in our portfolio. Fortunately, a lot of them have either exited or are on their way to being exited, fully under contract, ready to sell, even some large ones, even in a matter of days. In this couple weeks here, like a huge profit month for us during July and early August. So it's like, okay, with this liquidity coming back, we've stabilized within this kind of new macro economy. We have a better idea for our risk alignment and assessment here. Where can we start putting more of this money to work? And we wanted to do, okay, larger deals where we can continue to get, the same or better margins of at least 2x gross margin. And also just realizing, okay, like I shouldn't necessarily continue to spend my time reviewing smaller deals or have my team do that just because it's not driving enough of the underlying business forward to continue to work on them. And we know that there's just going to be less consistency with the operators bringing deals like that. So, we just jumped up to, okay, 50K minimum purchase price deals, which is already where we were trending. And anytime I was starting to do deals that were closer to that 20K mark or below 50, like some of them really worked out for us even this year. Like it's going to bring in some solid, consistent profit. But again, like the paradigm is that regardless of the size of your business or the size of the deal, in terms of, just monetary size, like most of the steps are the same or similar, and you're going to put in, basically the same level of effort into those into whatever size deal that there is. And that's the thing, again, in this market, like you can't really screw around either, even with small deals, because you can get caught really quickly. And that's also what happened to us, like within the subconscious, like, okay, this is just, a tinier amount of capital in the deal. And, some things slipped in diligence and we got ourselves in some, nasty little issues. Fortunately, all of them either worked out in our way, one with, relatively low loss. I mean, 10K loss, like that still hurts, but it was like low capital investment relative deal that, again, I would just like never make a mistake again like that too. But I know for some of those higher price deals, we just had that extra level of eyes on them to ensure that we were really locked in from a diligence side, that there was just less inherent risk for things slipping because we knew the pressure was higher. I know it's kind of like counterintuitive, where sometimes even these smaller deals are more risky because there's such huge variation in the deals that we're working on that, like, naturally you're just going to gravitate to things where more is on the line from a monetary side. So I wanted to collapse that down more so I could focus the team in and myself to have a lower risk of mistakes when we're dealing with just larger properties as a whole anyway that are going to require more scrutiny. Bump that minimum price up to 50K and just realize, okay, we're going to be leaving some money on the table. But again, that's another Hormozy thing too. It's like you're always leaving money on the table somewhere or another. It's just if you focus in, you can probably have the chance to earn even more money over the long term because you were just that much more focused. And that's taken me forever. I'm still learning that as an entrepreneur, and I've left extraordinary amounts of money on the table, unrealized gains that just turn into losses, like millions of dollars. Story for another time, but that is a lesson I've had to learn painfully many times over. And again, still learning that. And even this is like, it's taken us longer to jump up the value chain than I probably should have jumped up even quicker, but it is what it is, right? And we really are preferring 150K plus purchase price deals at this point too. It's like, okay, if we really want to 3x our business again, push past that plateau, we're going to have to move up market here. We have the liquidity, we have the knowledge, we have the track record to do this. So let's just go ahead and make that shift. And, we switched all of our marketing materials even over the last week to do this, started advertising it more directly in a lot of our communications, and, pretty much instantaneously, like, would it have happened either way? Maybe, but like we started getting some, much more interesting deals when things were like more topsy-turvy week by week, less reliability and the amount of leads coming in. But then all of a sudden it's like, okay, wow, we're getting some really solid stuff, multi-six-figure deals that are from reliable operators that we could certainly start pursuing here now that we put our Again, we updated our marketing. We're making our message more clear on exactly what we are looking for. And that's going to bring you the results. Because like if you don't express what you want in life, like it's maybe you'll get lucky and have some things come back to you that you really want. But unless you really, again, kind of make that concerted effort, here's what I want, what I'm going to accept, that has a way of kind of orienting, you know, external processes to be a little bit more in your favor, because you're telling people what you want there. And this is, again, I want to avoid more of like, I know some people might believe in like The Secret, and I forget who that author even is. I don't believe in that. We're just like putting energy out in the universe and having things come back to me. If people want to believe that, potentially it's worked in whatever favor for some folks. To me, I don't rely on that. It's just, what actions am I taking to bring things back to me? But again, I think I've remarked on this before, is that for any action, you need to start with a thought, right? So, but to me, I'm always connecting the thought to the action on what's coming back, not just from my thoughts by itself, because that's like, it doesn't make sense to me in that regard to the results that I'm getting there. So I want to make that distinction. But, again, this directional focus to larger deals had to start as a thought in my mind, chatting with partners, updating our advertising and our marketing, aligning my team, just the type of communications I was having with people bringing us deals, what type of folks and operators we were looking out for, which relationships I was starting to build more. Like all of that even could have been subconsciously defined, and just, okay, letting some folks go that just like weren't necessarily the best fit anymore. Maybe they'll be a better fit later on as they continue to grow. That's kind of the distinction that I wanted to make, is like get really, really clear on where your business, where you want it to head, and figure out, okay, what do we need to adjust here so that we can reach those goals. And so then you're just not stuck in this hodgepodge and starting to resent even leads that are coming into you that aren't like the best customer fits anymore. Like just figure that out, make it clear, and make that change. And if you need to change back, fine, but you got to test things out and see how it works prior to, kind of sticking with the old pattern that you had been doing before that was, getting you plateaued or even, losing business. Hopefully this one is helpful today. Something I've been thinking a lot about, and just, feeling pretty optimistic based on the results we've been getting over the last week. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs, based on what I said here today. Zero cost review of your land deals at Land Daily Diligence Facebook group, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. Subscribe and share, everybody. I will talk to you next time. Bye.